the one, the only, Ben Sion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Just Daf It. Today we continue Daf It Sotah, Daf Mem Vav, number 46. Hopefully Wednesday will be the Siyum. We'll be finishing Masech Sotah. I'm starting Masech Gittin. If you ever wanna go back to yeshiva, feel like you're missing yeshivish world back in your old days in yeshiva, now is the time. On Thursday is the time to start Daf Yomi. You do Gittin, then Kiddushin, then Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, and Baba Basra. 5 yeshiva, the most yeshivish masechtas in a row. I think it's worthwhile to start. And you're listening to Daf Yomi share, someone who also gives an Ian share on every daf in 5 to 10 minutes of Ian on every daf of Gittin, Kiddushin, Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, Baba Basra. You will get your feet wet into the world of Ian. If you never learned Ian before, you'll probably, after you finish 5 Masechtas with me, you will know how to learn Ian better than 90% of the Jewish world. I guarantee it, or your money back. All right, let's start the bottom. The Mishnah on Memhem Beis on the bottom. Niftaru Zikne Yerushalayim Ahalchu Lahen. We mentioned the Sanhedrin Agadol came to measure the Eglah Rufa, which city was closest to. So after they measured, they left. Zikne Osayir, Mevian Eglas Bakar. So then you had, like you mentioned, it has to, at least every city where the Eglah Rufa is done, it has to have an internal basin of 23 dayanim. So they bring a calf, a 1-year-old in his first year. A calf is only his first year. It could not have pulled a yoke, couldn't have done any work, we'll see. However, having a blemish, which normally is a psul for a carbon, does not passel an eglah rufa. You bring it to this valley where it's a very hard. Eitan kamashma kasha. Eitan means, like the Gemara will prove, it's very hard. There's a lot of rocks there. It's not fertile soil. However, that's only the chachila. But yeah, but even if it's not hard, it's kosher. He decapitated with a cleaver from its behind. The place where you did it, you can no longer in the future plant that or do any work with the ground over there, to plant trees, etc., etc. Over there. However, on top of the ground, you're allowed to do things. For example, you're allowed to comb flax over there. You're allowed to chisel rocks, but you can't do anything with the actual ground itself. After they decapitate the calf, they wash their hands on the place where they did the decapitation. When they do that, they say, our hands were not responsible for spilling the blood of this person. And our eyes didn't see it. Do we actually think the people who are the judges in the court, the 23 dayanim, they have to be people that are tzaddikim, people that are righteous people? We think they're murderers? What does it mean that they're saying we didn't spill the blood, we didn't kill him? He didn't come to our hands and ask for food for his journey. We didn't give it to him. It didn't come that he asked for an escort and we didn't give it to him. That Kohanim, what about, the Mepharshim asked an interesting question, and what about actually if he did come to them and they refused to give him bread, or he asked for an escort and they didn't give him an escort, right? Does the parsha of Eglah Rufa apply? We'll talk about that in Iyot Ben Tzion, and we'll talk more about the meaning of Eglah Rufa. What exactly is going on, or what exactly are we worried about? Why are these people, the closest city, responsible in part for his death? The Kohanim say, Kaper la'amcha Yisrael asher pada Hashem. V'al tite and dam naki b'kerev amcha. We know the Kohanim are also there. They say it should be an atonement for Klal Yisrael. And Hashem should not punish us, that people should die. He didn't have to actually say this, right? And we're saying it's not necessary to actually say this. Basically, the Torah, when it says in the pasuk, it's telling you that if you do this procedure, you do the process of Eglah Rufa, that atones for the sin that they are somewhat partially responsible for the death of this person who died outside their city limits. The Gemara says, If you moon posel egla mikal v'chomer. The Mishnah says that even a permanent blemish does not disqualify an egla rufa. Maybe it should. Mikal v'chomer. Logically, it should. Ma para she'ein hashanim posels ba. By para aduma, it could be very old. The female cow could be very old. Moon posel ba. The pasuk says there that if it has a blemish, it disqualifies it. Egla shanim posel. Egla has to be a calf in its first year. Eno din she'ein moon posel ba. Certainly also egla rufa. A mum should disqualify it. Remember, says shiny husam namakra asher ain ba mum. By part of it says there ain't ba mum posel ain mum posel ba agala. The fact it says ba is an exclusion. Only over there by para duma does a mum posel, not by egla rufa. Elamata lo yushar avodos posels ba. If that's true, that we darshan the word ba, so therefore any other avodos that you do, if you work it. If you work the para aduma, it shouldn't passel. Allah ma'amar v'hidam arav hiniachalel avoda shel sakin psula. Even a para aduma, you don't actually work it. You don't take to work the land. You just put on it a sack. You put it on a sack filled with something. It weighs something. It's carrying on its back. It doesn't even move. It passes by egla rufa. Agala achid timshach. And similar halacha, egla rufa. The work it has to do, it actually has to carry the bag on its back. Right? So here it says by egla rufa, it also says the word ba. So we should say only by egla rufa does avod apostle, why not by para aduma? Shiny para dialfin and all me egla. No, we learn zera shava. It says the word all in both places. So therefore, if it does work with a yoke, right? A yoke is basically you attach the yoke to the head. It's a weight on top of the cows. You do it with cattle. So you can force them to do work for you. So the Gemara says Magla. So the Gemara says, why don't we say the reversal? Egla, now we say the all me para, which we learn from para aduma, that a mum, a blemish, disqualifies. Hamir Rahman Bab. The Gemara says no. It says ba to exclude something. Obviously, something applies by para aduma, which doesn't apply by egarufa. Whereas by egla namik siv ba, it should say by egla it says ba. So that would seemingly exclude para aduma. Maybe para aduma work does not disqualify it. How we buy lelamute kajam. So the Gemara says the ba, when it comes to egla ruva, is not to exclude para aduma, it's to exclude other kajam, animals which are brought on mizbeach for a korban. The low possible avoda there, if they're worked, you're makadish an animal for a korban, and then it does work, it's still good for a korban. You might have thought what? So ma egla she'ein mum posel ba, and a mum does not disqualify it. Avoda poselis ba. If you work it, it does disqualify. Kashish and mum poselis bahen. Right? We know a korban, if it has a blemish, you can't be offered as a korban. Eino din she'avoda poselis bahen. Certainly by kachim, working it should passel them. So therefore, you need to tell me that kachim are not disqualified because they worked. Igal mifrach. The Gemara says it's not a valid kal vachomer. Mala egla shekein shanim poselis ba. An egla arufa can only be in the first year. Atu kachim, so a kachim, no kachim. There's various different types of kachim. Not most of them don't have a year limit. In other words, atu kachim mileka the pasi bushanim. There are certain kachim, like korban pesach has to be brought in the first year. A korban chatas has to be brought by a goat in the first year. Mileka the pasi bushanim. It's surakra lahanach kachim the pasi bushanim. There are certain kachim that have a year limit. Right, it has to be a certain age. So therefore, it's needed for a kal vachomer. Ba is needed to exclude from a kal vachomer of those kachim where there is an age limit. The kachim, so the Gemara says the kachim lo possible who avoda mehachanafka. Do we exclude kachim, right? That work is done with them. They're still good karbanos from ba. Mahasam nafka. You learn from some different pasuk. Iveres o shavar o charetz o yabelos o garv o yalefes. It's a krivu elala Hashem. The pasuk's talking about certain animals which are disqualified from being a korban. If it's blind, or it has a broken bone, or charetz, a split eyelid, or yabelos has warts, or garav o yalefet has certain types of boils, dry boils or moist boils. You shouldn't offer those korbanos to Hashem. Ela yat hamakriv. These you can't offer. Avat hamakriv kachim shnei deman avoda. Ela comes to say that if work was done with him, but they don't have an internal blemish, just work was done with him, so they are kosher. It's tzarich. The Gemara says no. There's two exclusions. One is necessary, right? You might think it only says it's kosher, it's fine when you did work which is permissible to do with them. Avodas iser, you did work which is forbidden. For example, you used it on Shabbos. You worked your animal on Shabbos. Or you worked your animal together with another animal. Let's say a shor with a chamor together, with a donkey together. That's for kilayim. Emalitzaru. You might think that animal is invalid for to be brought as a korban on the Sricha. That's why you need both. Say they're both kosher. Both of these things were learned from somewhere else. So, it says you shouldn't take a korban also if it belongs to a non-Jew. And I was talking about the aforementioned korbanos, which don't have a blemish. Again, this second time it says Eila. That if work was done with them, so then they're kosher. So one is to tell you avodas heter, and one is to tell you avodas iser. Why do you need ba? It's rich. In other words, you still need it. That's only when you did work with them before they were niskadish, before you were makdish. Once you were makdish them, and then you did work, they should be disqualified. That's why you need all three exclusions. Kufa. You put a sackcloth filled with something on it. Egla rufa, you have to actually not put something on, just put something on. You have to actually pull it and do the avod of carrying it. Meisive. Brisa, we asked for a brisa. All. Ainly ella all. Yoke. I only know a yoke. Shar avodas minayin. How do you know if you do any other work with it, it passes it? Amar kavachomer. By paraduma. Ma egla she'emon posal ba shar avodas posals ba. An egla rufa, a blemish, is not exempted, right? We learn from paraduma ba. A mum only exempts by, disqualifies by paraduma. However, egla rufa shar avodas posal, it says explicitly by egla rufa, you can't do any work with it. Para shemum posal, where a mum does disqualify. Certainly, other types of work are possible. And if you'll tell me, maybe I have a reason to disprove what I just said, and the Gemara will explain in a second why we would disprove this rhetoric, this logic. Nemar kan all v'nemar lahalan all is there a shava. It says all both by egla rufa and both by paradum. Malahalan shar avodas posel. But if egla rufa, any avodas are disqualified. Afkan shar avodas posel. Here also by paraduma, all any type of work disqualifies it. So the Gemara says, what is the Brisa saying? Why does it offer a second proof? Maybe you'll have a question. But an egla rufa has to be in the first year. Alternatively, kachim should disprove it. Right? Blemish disqualifies them. However, by kachim, your work it doesn't pass. So because based on those two arguments against it, therefore you have to resort to the gzera shava of all. Malahalan shavodos, afkan sharavodos. When makom shabasa malahalan achetimshok. So the Gemara says, wait a second. Just like over there by Egla, we're learning all gzera shava, right? You have to actually pull the animal. Afkan achetimshok. So here also by paraduma, it's not good enough to just put a sack on a paraduma which is not moving. The paraduma has to actually transport the sack. You have to pull it with the yoke and let it carry something. How do you know that it's more stringent by paraduma? So the Gemara says, Tanaki, it's actually, you're right, partially, but it's a machlokas Tanaim. Dika the maisila me'egla, vika the maisila migufa de para, right? We just learned it from all gzera shav from egla, but there's a different Tana who learns it from the paraduma itself, a pasuk in the paraduma itself, that even if uda shel sakin, you just put some bags, some sackcloth on the back of the paraduma without it even moving, it's considered a weight, a yoke, and therefore it disqualifies the paraduma. The Sanya, only Allah, I only know a yoke, shar avodas minayin. How do you know if I do any other work with the paraduma to disqualify? Talmud Lomar, asher lo aleh mikol makom. The extra word, asher lo Allah, aleha, it's including everything, even if you just put a sackcloth on its back. Im came out to all. So why does it say the word all? Just say asher lo aleh. all posted a weight, a yoke, or putting sackcloth on its back. That's when it disqualifies whether it's in the middle of working or not. Shar avoda then poses the ella b'shas avo, only when it's working. The ema asher lo aleh all klal, all prat. Klal prat, and b'klal masher prat. We have a concept of klal prat. It says a general thing, and then it says a detail. Right? So asher lo aleh is a general concept, and then it says all is specific. And what do we do with the klal prat? In b'klal masher prat, the only thing included in the general rule is the specific example. All in midiach only a yoke. But any other work, if you didn't put a burden on its back, you just worked in some other way, so then it wouldn't pass. So the Gemara says asher ribuyahu. The word asher is an extra word that comes to include anything. We have a similar brayso of egla rufa. All it says all by egla rufa. Only ella all shar avodas b'nayin. How do you know if I do any other work? That was the possible we were talking about before. You can't work in egla rufa. Mikal makam. Im kematam all. Why did it say all? All posts of shas avoda, shas avoda. A yoke disqualifies it, even if it's not working. Shar avoda and posts only in the middle of the work. Ve'ema asher ovad ba klal. All prat. Klal prat and klal masher prat say the same thing. Asher ovad ba is a general rule. All is a yoke is specific. So only a yoke exempts. Only a yoke disqualifies. All in midiachrin lo. Asher ribuyahu. Gemara said before. Asher. The word asher is an extra word. It comes to include any type of work. Amar rivahu. Ba iminev Yochanan. We asked from Yochanan. Mashiachas all bekama. Right? If it has a yoke on its back, by egla rufa. Right? We learn egla rufa has to actually pull the yoke. It has to move. How much does it have to move? Amalei kimlo ol. The word ol it says bit ol. So you dash the word ol. Also, partially ol is the amount of a yoke. Ibailu la'archo la'rachvo. The length of the yoke or the width of the yoke. Right? A yoke is basically a piece of metal. If you see the pictures, you put on top of the neck of the cattle, and basically it harnesses, it gives you control over it. You can attach things, ropes and something, and pull it like that, and to lead it to plow your field. How big does the ol have to be? How much? So you have to pull it the length or the width of the ol. So the Gemara says, Amar Lahu Homer Rabbanon Rabbi Yaakov Shmei. Rabbi Yaakov said, "L'didim Farsh L'mei Rabbi Yochanan." Rabbi Yochanan explained it to me. Mashiachas ol l'rachvo. It's the width. I believe the width is smaller. The length is, how far it extends onto the back. The width is the width. That's a smaller amount. A tefach, and the amount is a tefach. V'lema tefach. Why didn't he just say tefach? Why do you say rachva? Hakamash b'lan shiur the ol tefach. I tell you that the standard ol has a width of a tefach. Heavy. L'may nafkamina. Why is that important? The mekachol memkar. Someone you stipulate to buy a yoke from somebody, it has to be the width of a tefach. Amar Yochanan and Shalom Nema Amar Torah Hevi Egla Banachal. Why did the Torah say bring an Egla Rufa in the valley? Amar Kashbrach Yavdavar Shalasa Peros, especially like a valley where it's rocky soil, it's not fertile to plant anything. Yavdavar Shalasa Peros, bring a calf which does not have children, in its first year it's not going to have children. Yarif Makom Sheno said Peros. Let it be decapitated in a place where it's not going to grow things generally. It's infertile land. Let it atone for the city that didn't allow this man to produce fruit. My peros. What fruit are we talking? He couldn't have children. If the person who died was an old man or a sris that were incapable, Enoch, I think it's pronounced, he can't have children, so we shouldn't do egla rufa. But the halach is you do it for everyone. Ella mitzvos. The payros that he couldn't do is he couldn't do mitzvos. Once he's dead, he can't do mitzvos. Eitan, like the Mishnah says, it means a hard place, a rocky place, rocky soil. How do you know the word eitan means hard? Shenemar, on top of Vimavav Eitan moshavcha v'sim b'sela kinecha. Omer shimu harim el riva Hashem eitanim mosei aretz. Two psuk. One pasuk says, right by Bilam. Bilam said this. The place where Klal Yisrael sits is strong, right? Hashem places you like in a rock. The second part of the Shimon Harim is real Hashem. Here the mountain is the contention of Hashem. Eitan and most it's the strong ones who are the foundation of the land. Acherim, the Rai Meir says, Minayin Eitan Shu Yashin. How do you know the word Eitan actually means old? Shnemar Goy Eitan Hu Goy Ma'olam Hu. The nation is an ancient one. It's been around forever. So part of it, right? Soil that's been around for a while develops a lot of rocks, and it's not so fertile as newer ground. My time. How do you know you decapitate from the back? Because it says the word oref, egla arufa, and it also says by malika, when you have a chatas, a bird, chatas oaf is brought for certain karbanos. So you do malika over there, basically, and it says from the oref, from the back. So oref over there at the back of the neck. Here also, it's from the back of the neck. Once you do this, you can never plant that. You can never use that soil again to plant. Rabbi Yoshi says, Asher lo ya'avid bo lo yizara. At least lo ya'avid bo means that the place you have to go to wasn't worked even previously. Rabbi Yonasan says no, it could have been worked previously. Just from now on you can't work it. Rava explains. Everyone agrees. Once you do egla roof in that place, you can no longer plant things. You can't plant it in the future. Talking about, what about the past? Rabbi Yosha Savar miksiv lo yuvad, right? It doesn't say you shouldn't work it in the past. Lo ya'aved, that it shouldn't have been worked. Rabbi Yonasan miksiv asher lo nevad. If it really means to say the past, it should say nevad, been more clear. The fact that it says ya'aved, you can think it means yuvad in the future. Rabbi Yoshia, what does he do with that? Asher l'sha'avar mashma. Really, he learns out of the word asher, extra word asher, right? Asher means in the past. Asher means, if it meant to say the future, you didn't need the word asher. Asher means something that happened in the past. Rabbi Yonasan asher ribuyu. Rabbi Yonasan, what do you do with the word asher? Asher is to include something. We'll see in a second what Rabbi Yonasan includes with the word asher. Even though you're not allowed to work the ground, you're allowed to do other type of work. You're allowed to, in the area, you're allowed to comb flax, and you're allowed to chisel rocks. I only know that you can't plant the land. How do you know I can't do any other work with the land? Right? To soften the land, to hoe the land, things of minai. And Talmud Lomer, Asher li'avad bo. Asher li'avad bo mikol makom. It says Asher li'avad bo. Extra phrase. It's basically repeating the same thing. You can't work it and you can't plant it. So the fact it says you can't work, it includes everything. Why do you need the second repetition? You shouldn't plant it. Just like Zriya, it's done with the actual soil itself. It has to be something which is done directly with the land. Things on top of the land are okay. Maybe the reason it says twice, surely is a general rule. Is a specific. We said it before. Only planting is a problem, but any other work is okay. Asher ribuyu. So this is where Yonasan says Asher comes to include any type of work, but only in the future, not in the past. The Kohanim washed their hands ala egla harufa b'nachal. Why did it say egla harufa? We know it was decapitated already. It tells you where they washed their hands, in the place where the calf was decapitated. Why are they saying this? That we didn't spill the blood and we were responsible. The Skanim, the Beis Din, they're righteous people. They never would have done that. They have to declare that he didn't come to us seeking food and we didn't give it to him. He didn't come as seeking an escort and we didn't give it to him, because that's ultimately responsible for his death. I'll explain this more in Iyad Ben Sion. What exactly happened? What exactly is the meaning of this whole process of Egla Rufa? Tanya, Hayari Meir Omer, Kofin Levaya. You force a city to escort people to leave the city. Shashkar Levaya Ein Lashir. It's incomparable, the reward that you get for escorting someone. It's a huge reward. Shenemar, where do we know this from? In the time of when Klal Yisrael were conquering Eretz Yisrael, at the time of Yeshua, they wanted to conquer Beis El, apparently. Ephraim and Menashe wanted to capture Beis El, but they didn't know how to get where the entrance of the city was. They wanted to go and capture it. So they asked one of the people in the city, show us where the entrance is. Escort us into the entrance. He didn't actually need to escort us, at least show us where it is. If you do that, we'll do good for you. He did that. He showed it to him. What happened to him? That entire city, Beis El, was killed. All the Knainim were killed. That man and his family had sent away to be saved. That person went and he built a city and he called it Luz. That's the name until this day. Tanya, he Luz Shesovim Batchela. Luz is a special city where they specialize in coloring things with tcheles. He Luz Shebasam Cherev Lo Bilba. It's a specific city. Even when Sancherev came and took this 10 tribes and exiled them, that city he didn't touch. Nebuchadnezzar, when he captured Eretz Israel, he didn't destroy that city. In the city of Luz, Malach Mavis can't kill anyone. When old people, when their time comes, they decide to go outside the walls of the city, and they die only outside the wall. We learn amazing Kal V'chomer from this. He didn't even say anything. We'll see in a second. He didn't say anything. He didn't walk. Garam Hatzal Lo Lazaro Hatzal Kol Adoros. It caused him and his future progeny to be saved forever. Misha Osalavai Barakla, someone who actually escorts him with his feet. Alachas Kama Kama Meher Elahem. So we said he didn't actually speak. How did he show it to them? Chizkiah Amar Befiv Ikem. He just motioned with his mouth over there. Rabbi Yochanan Betzbor here Alahem. He says he actually did it with his finger. He pointed this finger. Tanya was to Rabbi Yochanan Abraisa according to Rabbi Yochanan. B'shvil Shaknaini Zeh Hira Betzbo Garam Atal Lo Zaro Atzov Kodars. Because he showed his finger, he saved him and his progeny. Amar Rabbi Shimon Levi Mahalach B'derach Ve'elon Levaya Yasaf B'Torah. If you go on the journey and you don't have an accompaniment, someone to escort you, Yasaf B'Torah, you should engage in thinking about Torah. Shnemar Ki Livya Schein Heim L'Oshecha V'Anaknu L'Garosecha. Talking about Divrei Torah, they're considered a beautiful accompaniment and also a chain around your neck. When Avram went to Paro, and he told Paro that Sarah was his sister, right? And then Paro found out, so he escorted him 4 amos. He told his people to escort him out. He was paid back that the children of Avram were enslaved for 400 years. The children of Avram were enslaved 400 years in Mitzrayim. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Kol Melavas Chavera Ara Amos Be'ir Eno Nizok. If you escort your friend, even 4 amos in the city, it comes to your house, you escort him out. A lot of people do this when a guest comes over. He's not going to be harmed, meaning the guest will not be harmed. Ravina Alaviye L'Rava Bar Yitzchak Dalet Amos Be'ir. Ravina escorted Rav Bar Yitzchak 4 amos, even in the city. Matli Yodeh Ezeka Itzel. Something dangerous came his way, he was saved. Tanraban Rav Talmud Ad Ibura Shalir. How far does a rabbi have to escort his student? To the Ibura Shalir, we said in Masechah, Erevin, Ibura Shalir is basically 70 amos. From where the last house is, you measure about 70 and 2/3 amos until there. Chaver lechaver, a friend to a friend, Atchum Shabbos. You escort him 2,000 amos outside the city. Talmud l'Rav, ein lo shir. A Talmud escorting his rabbi when he's leaving. There's no shir. Vakama, well, what do you mean, ain't no shir? There is some shir. Amar Sheshat Parsa, basically 4 kilometers. V'lo Amar Ela Rabbo Shenamuv. That's only talking about your Rebbe. That's not your complete Rebbe. He's a Rebbe that you learn part of your knowledge from, but not most of your knowledge from. Aval Rabbo Muvak, Rebbe you learn most of your knowledge from. Shloshah Parsos. You have to escort him 3 parsos, which is 12 mil, which is about 12 kilometers. Rav Kahana Oviyah Rav Simon Barashi. Rav Kahana, who was a student, he accompanied his Rebbe, Rav Simon Barashi, in Pum Nahara at Beis Sinisa, a very far amount, 2 cities in Bavel. Beis Sinisa Bavel. Kimatu Hasam, when they got to Beis Sinisa, basically escorted him to the next town, because I guess it was within 12 kilometers. And Amar Lei, when he got there, Avada Dam Risu Hani Sinisa the Bavel Mishne Adam Arishon is new. These trees, Sinisa the Bavel was named on the place. They had nice trees over there. These nice trees They were already around Adam Rishon's time. Amar le Akron Milsa. Once he said this, the Rebbe said to him, "You're reminding me of something." Amar Rav Yosef Rechanina, "My dechsiv be'eretz lo avar ba'ish lo yashav Adam sham." In this land, no one passed and no one settled there. And since no one passed there, heichan yashav. What's the second half of the pasuk necessary for? Of course, it wasn't settled. El eretz. The pasuk comes to teach you eretz shagazar alei Adam Arishon liyishin this yashva. Any place where Adam Arishon said this place should be settled, it ended up being a place where people live. Any place Adam Arishon said did not declare as a settlement, it was never settled. Rav Mordechai, Rav Mordechai was a Talmud. He was a student. He escorted his rabbi, Rav Ashi, again, this was within, I guess, the 12 kilometers. So Amri ad Beidor. Some say Beidor. Amar Rav Yochanan, Mishur and Meir. Anyone who does not escort and also is not escorted. It's interesting, it doesn't say escorted. You have to make sure that you are escorted also. It's partially your responsibility. Kilu shavech dam is like you spilled blood. If the people of Yericho, when Elisha left Yericho, they had escorted him. Right? Eventually we'll see the story the Gemara is going to lay out. That some children they cursed Elisha because Elisha cured the bitter waters of Yericho. And these people were selling Poland Spring water. And they're out of business, so they cursed him. And because they cursed him, bears came out of the woods and chased these kids and killed them. He went out of Yericho, went to Beis El, Elisha. We'll see in a second who these children were. They came out from the city, they cursed him. Well, they didn't curse him, they said degrading things. The bald one has come out. Apparently, Elisha was bald. Amrlo Allah shekrachta alena samak. The different shot is that not that he's actually bald. You made us bald. You made our parnasa bald because they couldn't sell water. Why did it say narim ktanim? Right? Ktanim are under the age of bar mitzvah. Nar is basically is adolescent. Amar Rav Lezer shemanuru min mitzvahs. Both words are meant to be darsha. Nar means that they were empty from mitzvahs. Kanim shim tane amana. They didn't believe in Amuna, in Hashem, that Hashem would provide them for Nasa. Tana, Narim Hayu. Another explanation, they really were adolescents. So Bizbizu Atzma Ketanim. They degraded themselves like young children, the way they spoke to him. Maskler Yosef asked the following question. Maybe they were called Narim. They really actually were children, but they're called Narim because that's the place they were from. Milo Ksiv. The Arab Yasser Gedudim Ayishbu Meretz Yisrael Narak Tana. The Pasuk Malachim, Aram went out, and they captured a young girl. The Kashla Nara Tana. If she's an adolescent, she's not Tana. Ara Ptach Tana. She really was a young girl under the age of Bar Mitzvah. The Minura and our Nara, she was a place called Nuran. Hasam. So the answer is Hasam Lo Mefarish Mekoma. It doesn't say where she's from, so therefore we have the right to say Nara is our place. Hacham Afurish Mekom. And here it says where they are from. They're from Yericho. He turned around and he cursed them in the name of Hashem. Mara, what did he see? What did Elisha see? Amarav Ra Mamish. He gazed at them. Anytime a Talmid Chacham or a Chacham looks at someone, they gaze at them, either the person dies or he becomes impoverished. Shmuel says it was actually sort of envious. He saw they weren't worthy to be saved because they were all the product their mother had conceived them on Yom Kippur. You're not allowed to have engaged in marital relations on Yom Kippur. Rabbi Yisrael Nafcha Amar Bluris Ra'lah and Kamorayim. They had a haircut, they had a mullet, like Amorayim, with a non-Jewish haircut. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Ra Shel Haisab El Chluvish Al Mitzvah. He saw that they didn't have any even a little taste of mitzvahs. They didn't do any mitzvahs. Maybe they should be saved on account of their children and will do mitzvahs. Amar Lazar lo bam v'lo bizaram ad sof kol doros. He saw that it wasn't in them and not in their progeny until the end of generations. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. That's the conclusion of today's shir. A long shir, a long dapim over here. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion, where I discuss really what is this whole idea of Egla Rufa, what's going on over here. Give you a little understanding, a little deeper understanding. Ian Ben Sion coming up next.